Господин председатель,
Mr. President,
благодарим
we'd
заместителя
like to thank the
спецпредставителя
Deputy
Генерального
Special
секретаря
Representative of the
Вивиан
Secretary General,
Ван де Пер
Vivian
за
van der Peer, for her briefing.
Приветствуем
We
участие в заседании
welcome
министра
to
иностранных
the
дел
meeting the Minister of
Демократической
Foreign
Республики
Affairs of the
Конго
Democratic
Тереза
Republic of
Вагнер,
Congo, Teresa
представителей
Banga, and the
остальных стран,
representative of
запросившихся
the
по правилу
other
37.
countries who've requested the floor under Rule 37.
Уважаемые коллеги, 2
Distinguished
дня назад
colleagues,
мы
2
встречались в
days
этом
ago
зале
we met in
и
this chamber
обсуждали
and discussed
тревожное
the
развитие
worrisome
ситуации на востоке
developments
этой
in the
страны.
situation in the eastern
Последние
DRC.
48
Over the
часов она
past 48
стремительно
hours,
деградировала,
the
особенно в
situation has
связи с
significantly
захватом Гома,
deteriorated,
где
especially with the
находится
seizure
свыше
of
миллиона
Goma,
гражданских
where
лиц.
there are more than 1 million civilians located.
Россия решительно
Russia
осуждает
firmly
действия
condemns the
группировки
actions
М23.
of M23.
Мы призываем к
We call
немедленной
for
остановке
a swift cessation
боестолкновений
of
и выводу
hostilities
бойцов этого
and a
незаконного
withdrawal
вооруженного
of the
формирования
rebels of the illegal
из
armed
захваченных
formation
населенных
from
пунктов и
the
занятых
towns,
территорий.
villages, and territory they've seized.
Мы также
We
призываем
also
внешние силы
urge
прекратить
external
поддержку
forces to
М23
cease their
и
support for
отозвать свои воинские
M23
подразделения.
and to recall their military
Необходимо без
units.
промедления
There's a need without delay
возобновить
to resume
переговорный
the
процесс в
negotiation
Руанде.
process in Luanda.
Нельзя допускать
We
разрастания
must not
эскалации,
allow a
создающей угрозу жизни
spillover of the
людей
escalation
по обе
which could
стороны
threaten the
границы
lives of
и
people on both
чревато
sides of the
скатыванием
border and
межгосударственного
is
конфликта
likely
регионального масштаба.
to turn into an interstate conflict on a regional scale.
Мы глубоко
We are
озабочены
seriously
гуманитарными
concerned
последствиями
by the
происходящего.
humanitarian repercussions of what's
На
going
наших с
on.
вами глазах и без
In
того
front
тяжелая
of our
ситуация
very
в Северном
eyes,
Киве
the
превращается в
already difficult
настоящую
situation
гуманитарную
in North
катастрофу.
Kivu is turning into an utter
Гома
humanitarian
фактически
disaster.
отрезана от
Goma de
внешнего мира,
facto is cut off from
что
the
может
outside
привести к
world.
тяжелейшим
This may
последствиям
have
для жителей
serious
города
consequences for the
и бежавших
inhabitants of
туда
the town
внутренне
and the
перемещенных лиц.
IDPs who have fled there.
Вновь
Once
выражаем
again, we would
соболезнования
like to
семьям
express our
погибших граждан
condolences to the families
ДРК,
of the
миротворцев
civilian
ООН
victims
и
of the
павших бойцов
DRC,
сообщества
the UN
Mahlet и Еврат.
peacekeepers, and the fallen
Мы
SADC
солидарны с
soldiers.
правительством
We
ДРК и
stand in
государств,
solidarity
потерявших
with
своих
the governments of the
военнослужащих.
DRC and those
Желаем
states who've
скорейшего
lost their
выздоровления всем им.
service personnel.
Хотел бы
We
подчеркнуть, что Россия
wish them
безоговорочно
speedy
осуждает нападения
recovery.
на
We'd like to
миротворцев.
underscore that Russia
Это абсолютно
unequivocally condemns the
неприемлемо.
attacks on
Мы
peacekeepers. It's
твердо
absolutely
поддерживаем миссию
unacceptable.
ООН по
We
стабилизации Демократической
firmly
Республики
support
Конго
the
и ее
UN
руководство и
peacekeeping
главу
mission
МОНУСКО.
in the stabilization mission in the
Мы
DRC,
также
its
осуждаем
leadership,
любые
and the
нападения
Blue
или
Helmets. We
проявления
also
агрессии в отношении
condemn any
иностранных
attacks and acts
дипломатических
of aggression
представительств.
regarding
Такие
international
действия не
diplomatic
имеют ничего общего
representation.
с
Such
мирными
actions
демонстрациями.
have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with peaceful demonstrations.
Призываем
We
Киншасу
urge
обеспечить
Kinshasa
защиту
to ensure the
зарубежных миссий
protection
и
of foreign
дипломатического
missions
персонала
and
в
diplomatic
соответствии с
staff,
Венской конвенцией
pursuant to
и
the Vienna
международными
Convention
обязательствами.
and its international
Насилие на
obligations.
востоке ДРК
The
необходимо
violence in eastern
остановить.
DRC needs to
Однако
stop.
военного
However,
пути
there's no
урегулирования
military
кризиса
path
не
to
существует.
resolve this crisis.
Совершенно
It is
очевидно, что это
absolutely clear
возможно
that
только
this
в
is only
результате
possible as a
политической
result of
договоренности.
political agreements.
Убеждены,
We're
что
convinced
луандийский
that the
процесс
Luanda
остается той
process
площадкой,
remains
где
the
эта
best
договоренность
forum
может быть достигнута.
where agreements can be reached.
Мы
We
внимательно
carefully
выслушали
listened to the
представителя Анголы в ходе
representative of
заседания
Angola
этого
during
совета,
the meeting
прошедшего
of
в
the
Брюсселе.
Council on Sunday.
Он прямо сказал, что единственным
Angola
препятствием для
clearly stated that
подписания
the only
документа о
obstacle to
примирении между
preventing a
Киншасой и Кигали
signature of a
остался
reconciliation
вопрос о
document
прекращении
between Kinshasa and
государственного
Kigali
взаимодействия
was
с
the issue
незаконным
of cessation
вооруженным
of
формированием.
a government interaction
Прежде
with
всего,
the
это
illegal
касается
armed
М23.
formations and primarily with the
Без
M23.
урегулирования статуса этой
Without
группировки в
settling the
рамках
status of this
межконголесского диалога,
group as
попытки
part of
добиться
the
выздоровления
inter-Congolese
отношений между
dialogue,
ДРК и
any
Рвандой не
attempts to
принесут
improve the
устойчивого
situation
результата.
between the DRC and Rwanda will
В
not
этом
bear
смысле
lasting
крайне
fruit.
востребован
Here,
срочный
there is
перезапуск
an urgent
найробийского
need for the
процесса
resumption of
или
the Nairobi
продвижение схожих
process
региональных
and the pushing
инициатив.
forward of similar regional initiatives. There's no
Альтернативы этому нет.
alternative to this.
Господин председатель,
Mr.
попытки
President,
урегулировать
attempts
кризис
to
также будут
settle the
бесплодными,
crisis
если
will
страны
also
региона
not bear
Великих озер
fruit
не
if
примут
the
решительных
countries
мер
of the
для
Great
борьбы
Lakes region
с
do not
незаконной
take decisive
эксплуатацией
measures
контрабандных
to
природных
combat the
ресурсов.
illegal exploitation
Их
and
львиная доля, как
smuggling
известно,
of
поступает
natural
именно
resources,
с
the lion's
захваченного
share of which,
нестабильностью
as we
востока
all
Конго.
know, come from the eastern DRC, which is beset by
Пересмотреть свое отношение
instability.
к
There's a
потреблению этих
need
ресурсов должны также
for
нерегиональные игроки
extra-regional
и
players
крупные
and
международные
large
ТНК,
transnational
в чьих
corporations to
интересах
review their
не
relationship with the
прекращается
use of
поток
these
незаконных
resources,
поставок кровавых
because
минералов.
in their interest, there's this ongoing illegal supply of blood minerals.
Эти же государства
These
имеют все
states have
инструменты,
all
чтобы
instruments
остановить
available
горячую
to
фазу
them to stop
конфликта и
the
оказать давление
hot
на
phase,
стороны
so to
для
speak,
того,
of the
чтобы они
conflict and
вернулись к
to exert
переговорам.
pressure on the parties so they return to
Они должны быть
negotiations. They
задействованы для
must be
сохранения
harnessed
человеческой жизни
to
и прекращения
protect
страданий
people's lives and
сотен
to
тысяч
stop the
гражданских
suffering of
лиц.
hundreds of thousands of
К
civilians.
сожалению, все мы видели,
Unfortunately,
что
we've all
принятое
seen seen that the statement of the council has not stopped the M23 and those to support this group from seizing Goma and continuing their hostilities. Russia, from its side, will do everything possible, including through here in the Council, to stop the escalation and to restore prospects for diplomatic settlement in the interest of stabilizing the situation in the Eastern DRC. Thank you very much indeed.
Mr. President, thank you for the floor. Members of the Council, first of all, I would like to note that for the first time in our meetings, Mr. President, thank you for the floor. Members of the Council, first of all, I would like to note that for the first time in our meetings, Rwanda did extend condolences for the fallen peacekeepers. However, I would like to rectify something. The peacekeepers did not die in a process. The peacekeepers were killed. Second of all, SADC forces deployment through SAMI DRC were not deployed unilaterally by the DRC, but rather with a mandate from the AU, an organization Rwanda is a part of, even if its behavior in the DRC clearly flaunts its principles. Third, the M23 excluded itself from the Nairobi process by
This is DRC representative to the United Nations talking now, by the way, in case if you don't read, what is in front of her.
renewing attacks against the FARDC. The government of the DRC has nonetheless expressed its willingness to re-include the M23 in the Nairobi process. We reject Rwanda's obsession and attempts to elevate the M23 to the level of an interlocutor deemed fit to sit at the same table as a legitimate government. 30 years down the line, we have never stooped to the level of expecting and demanding from Rwanda to talk to its brothers and sisters, the FDLR, who are still in our country. We have not stooped to that level. Fourth, on regime change, we will remind the Rwandan delegation that the M23 and the AFC has repeatedly expressed its intent to march in Kinshasa. The very M23 Rwanda forces are backing right now. There is a subtlety that should not go amiss between words and actions. Rwanda's actions, side by side with the M23, are actions seeking to overthrow a legitimately established government. On the Luanda and Nairobi processes, we will remind the Rwandan representative that the DRC never left the negotiating table. It was Rwanda that did not show up on the 15th. It was Rwanda that did not come when President Lorenzo invited us. And President Kenyatta was also present. President Tshisekedi honored his commitment. In the past weeks, we have seen efforts, calls from this council, from our partners, from our friends, urging us all to renew our efforts within the Luanda process. The DRC never left the table. It is up to Rwanda to come back to the table. I would also like to remind the council that in this very session, the government of the DRC, through my own statement, condemned all attacks against diplomatic missions in the DRC. We do this in our concern to abide by and respect international law. However, we have yet to hear Rwanda explain to us what its efforts have been to abide by international law and to respond to the violations it has been found guilty of in the DRC. Violations of the Charter, violations of international humanitarian law, violations of international human rights law. Members of the Council, I would like to close with what has brought us back here in less than 48 hours. Rwanda's outright contempt for this Council and its declaration that it will not, for the Council and the Council's declaration, and its demonstration that it is in the deluded belief that there is a Rwandan exception when it comes to international law. But what has also brought us here is the Council's choice 2 days ago to opt for words and not for actions. This Council is not unable to take actions. In fact, it is uniquely equipped to take actions. Hence, the question that remains at the end of this meeting is whether this Council is unwilling to act. Thank you.